You there? The black girl in the back with the cheap uniform? Come up here now." Chase Hendricks' voice cut through the Orpheum Theater like a knife through silence. 500 guests turned in unison. 2 million viewers watching the live stream held their breath. Zara Williams was 11 years old. Her hands trembled so violently she had to press them against her sides to steady herself. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean—" "Save it." His hand clamped down on her shoulder, not hard enough to leave a mark, but firm enough to make his control clear. He dragged her into the spotlight, the heat of it burning against her face. "Let's see if you can actually sing," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Or if you're just taking up space like the rest of them." He snapped his fingers at his band, the sound sharp and impatient. "Give her higher ground. The impossible note that made me $2 million. He leaned close then, microphone switched off, but hers still, broadcasting every word to the world. "Fail quietly, kid. Don't embarrass yourself." The audience held its collective breath. Cameras zoomed in on Zara's face, capturing every flicker of fear, every tremor of uncertainty. What she did next didn't just prove him wrong. It ended everything he'd built on lies, exposed a fraud that had lasted 15 years, and changed an entire industry forever. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. But to understand how an 11-year-old girl brought down one of the most powerful men in music, we need to go back. Back to 4 hours earlier, when Zara stood in that same theater with her stomach tied in knots and hope still flickering in her chest. Zara had always lived with scarcity. She shared a 2-bedroom apartment in Compton with her mother and 2 younger brothers. The heater only, MVYC, worked in one room, so on cold nights they all huddled together, sharing blankets and body heat. Her mother, Patricia Williams, was a nurse at County General Hospital, working night shifts that left her exhausted and hollow-eyed during the day. She slept in stolen 3-hour blocks while Zara made mac and cheese for her brothers and helped them sound out words in their homework. Money was always the question hanging over their lives. Can we afford it? Not this month. Maybe next year. These phrases were the soundtrack of Zara's childhood, repeated so often they became background noise. But Zara had been singing since she was 5 years old. Every Sunday she stood in the second row of the New Hope Baptist Church choir, her voice rising clear and pure above the congregation. By 7, her choir director, Ms. Lorraine Johnson, had pulled Patricia aside after service one morning. "Your daughter has perfect pitch," Ms. Johnson had said, her eyes bright with excitement. 1 in 10,000 people can identify any note just by hearing it. She hears things the rest of us can't even imagine. Patricia had smiled, proud but weary, already calculating costs in her head. "What do we do with that?" "Berkeley, Juilliard, professional training." Ms. Johnson paused, her excitement dimming. "It costs money we don't have." So Zara sang at church. She sang in the school choir at Jefferson Elementary, where the music budget had been cut 3 years running and the piano was missing 6 keys. She sang in her room at night, quietly, teaching herself runs and riffs from YouTube videos on her mother's old phone. The screen cracked, but still functioning. Her range was unusual, extraordinary even. D3 in chest voice all the way up to G6 in whistle register. Those impossibly high notes that sounded like wind chimes caught in a gentle breeze. She didn't know this was rare. She just knew it felt right, like breathing. When the letter came saying Jefferson Elementary had been selected for Chase Hendricks' charity gala, the whole school erupted in celebration. 20 choir students would perform as background vocals. Real stage, television cameras, professional sound equipment. It was the kind of opportunity that didn't come to schools like theirs. Patricia bought Zara a new white blouse from the discount store, tag still attached until that morning in case they needed to return it. She ironed it carefully, her movements slow and deliberate, making sure every crease was perfect. Chase Hendricks was famous for these galas. One every year in a different city, raising money for underprivileged schools, posing for photos with kids who looked like they needed saving. The press called him generous, compassionate, a man who gave back. His brand was built on being the voice of a generation. 4 platinum albums, 2 Grammy Awards, endorsement deals with Pepsi and Nike. And at the center of it all was that signature note, the whistle register, C6, at the end of Higher Ground, that no one else could hit. The note that made him a legend. Except during Soundcheck that afternoon, Zara had heard something that didn't make sense. The choir had been waiting backstage, instructed to stay quiet and still while Chase rehearsed. But Zara had wandered near the wings, curious, wanting to see the stage where they'd be performing, and she'd heard him attempt the bridge of Higher Ground. He'd started strong. His voice was good, trained, polished, expensive sounding. But when he reached for that famous high note, something broke. His voice cracked around A5, 2 full steps below where it should have been. The sound was ragged, strained, human. He'd stopped, frustration flashing across his face, and snapped at his sound engineer. "Bring the track up higher on that section. I need more support." The engineer nodded, adjusted something on his board, and when Chase sang it again, the note was perfect. Too perfect. It didn't sound like it was coming from his throat. It sounded like it was coming from the speakers, layered and artificial. Zara stood there, confused. She had perfect pitch. She could hear the difference between a live voice and a recording. She could hear the slight digital shimmer, the way the note sat on top of the music instead of inside it, the way it didn't breathe. That perfect C6 wasn't Chase Hendricks. It was a backing track. She'd gone back to the choir risers and said nothing. Who would believe an 11-year-old girl from Compton over a man who'd sold 4 million albums? Who would even listen? But now, standing under the spotlight with his hand gripping her shoulder, with 2 million people watching and his whispered threat still ringing in her ears. "Fail quietly, kid." Zara understood something else. He knew she'd heard him at Soundcheck. This wasn't about giving her a moment to shine. This was about making sure no one would ever believe her if she told the truth. This was about humiliation as insurance. The band started playing. The opening chords of Higher Ground filled the theater, familiar and haunting. Zara's mouth went dry. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "I don't think I can," she started, her voice small. "Sure you can, sweetheart." Chase's voice boomed for the audience, all fake warmth and encouragement. "Just follow the music. It's easy." But Higher Ground wasn't easy. The verse sat comfortably in mid-range, accessible to most singers. But the bridge climbed relentlessly, viciously, toward that signature whistle register C6 that had made Chase Hendricks famous. The note Zara now knew he couldn't actually sing. Chase stepped back, giving her room to fail, his expression carefully arranged into benevolent expectation. The cameras captured it all. "Whenever you're ready," he said. Zara took a breath. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory from that morning, words spoken over breakfast before Zara had left for the gala. "Baby, if someone tries to make you small, you stand tall. You hear me? You stand tall." She opened her mouth to sing, but stopped. Something shifted inside her, a clarity cutting through the fear. "Mr. Hendricks." Her voice was small, but the microphone carried it through the theater. Chase's smile tightened at the edges. "Yes?" Can you turn off the backing track, please? The theater went silent. Not the quiet of anticipation, but the silence of shock, of breath held and waiting. Chase blinked, his expression freezing. What? The backing track, Zara said, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Can you turn it off? I want to sing it for real. Confused murmurs rippled through the audience like wind through grass. Chase's smile stayed fixed on his face, but his eyes went cold. The backing track is part of the arrangement, sweetheart. It's how the song is meant to be performed. But you sang it without the track at Soundcheck, Zara said, the words tumbling out now, unstoppable. You sang it alone. I heard you. The murmur grew louder, more urgent. People were leaning forward in their seats. Chase's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching. Soundcheck is different from performance. The technical requirements... Then can you sing it first? Zara interrupted, her voice gaining strength. Show me how, without the track, so I can learn from you? The question hung in the air like smoke. Chase stared at her. The audience stared at both of them. The camera zoomed in, capturing every detail, every micro-expression. 2 million people watching online stopped scrolling, stopped multitasking, focused entirely on this moment. Excuse me? Chase's voice had lost its warmth. I want to learn from you, Zara said, her voice still respectful, but firm, unyielding. Sing it without the backing track, so I can hear how you do it, so I can see what I'm supposed to do. 3 seconds of silence. Then Chase laughed, but it was sharp, brittle. You want me to audition for you? No, sir. I just want to see if you can actually hit the note. The theater erupted. Gasps, scattered nervous laughter, the sound of a world shifting on its axis. Chase's face flushed red, anger finally breaking through his carefully maintained facade. Of course I can hit the note. I've been hitting it for 15 years. Then show me. Chase's mouth opened, closed. His hand flexed at his side. The cameras captured it all. The fury, the fear, the realization that he was trapped. Fine, he said through clenched teeth. You want a demonstration? I'll give you a demonstration. He turned to his sound engineer, voice hard. Kill the backing track, all of it. The engineer hesitated, hand hovering over the controls. Chase, are you sure? Do it. The engineer pressed a button. The music thinned, stripped down, exposed. Chase raised his microphone and began to sing. His voice filled the theater, strong at first, confident. He moved through the verse with ease, his years of professional training evident in every controlled breath, every smooth transition between notes. The audience relaxed slightly. Maybe this was just a misunderstanding. Maybe the kid was wrong. Maybe everything was fine. Then he reached the bridge. The melody climbed. E4, G4, B4. Chase's voice followed, still solid, still controlled. But as the notes pushed higher, something changed. His neck tensed. His shoulders rose slightly, betraying the strain. D5, E5, A5. His face reddened with effort. And then he reached for the C6. His voice cracked. It broke somewhere around A sharp, a full step and a half below the target, the sound splintering like glass hitting concrete. He stopped abruptly, coughed, tried to cover it with a laugh that fooled no one. Sorry, folks, he said, his smile strained. Dry throat. That's why we use the track, to protect the voice during long shows. But Zara had heard enough, and so had everyone else. You didn't hit it, she said, quietly. Chase turned to her, his smile now a thin line drawn across his face. I told you, my voice is tired. But on your album, you hit that note 27 times, Zara said. Her voice was growing stronger now, fueled by something she didn't fully understand yet. Not courage exactly, but clarity. I counted, and in every live video online, you hit it perfectly every single time. Every concert, every television appearance, every award show, perfect. Every time. The audience shifted in their seats. Phones came out. People started looking at each other, understanding dawning in their eyes. "What are you trying to say?" Chase's voice had an edge now, the smooth veneer cracking like old paint. "I have perfect pitch," Zara said. The words came easier now, truth flowing like water finding its path. "I can hear frequencies exactly. The note on your album, it's 1046.5 hertz. That's C6. But what you just sang was 932 hertz. That's A-sharp 5. You missed it by almost 2 full steps." Someone in the audience whispered, loud enough to carry, "Is she right?" Chase's face reddened further. "Listen, little girl." "And the voice on the album," Zara continued, her words tumbling out now unstoppable. "It doesn't sound like you. It's a woman's voice. I looked up your album credits last week. It says Sophia Mitchell, additional vocals. Is she the one singing your note?" The theater exploded in whispers, in murmurs, in the sound of reputations beginning to crumble. Journalists started typing furiously on their phones. Audience members shouted questions. Cameras abandoned their fixed positions, operators moving to capture every angle. Chase stepped toward her, no longer smiling, all pretense abandoned. "You need to stop talking right now." "Why?" Zara asked. And for the first time since she'd been dragged onto that stage, she felt something other than fear. She felt powerful. "Because I'm telling the truth? Because you're 11 years old and you don't know what you're talking about. I know what I heard at Soundcheck. I know what I'm hearing now." Zara looked out at the audience, at the cameras, at the 2 million people watching this unfold in real time. "That note isn't yours. You've been lip-syncing it for 15 years. Chase's hand shot out and grabbed her arm. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to control, to silence. "We're done here." But before he could pull her off stage, a voice came from the wings. "Actually, she's right." Everyone turned. A man stepped into the light, Chase's sound engineer, the one who'd been running the board all night. His face was pale but determined, like a man who'd finally decided to stop running from something. "I've been your engineer for 5 years, Chase," he said, his voice carrying across the stunned silence. "Every single show, I've played that backing track. You've never sung that note live, not once." The theater went completely silent. It was the silence of worlds, ending of truths too large to process immediately. Chase's grip on Zara's arm loosened. He stared at his engineer like the man had just driven a knife into his back and twisted it. "You're fired," Chase whispered. "I know," the engineer said. His name was David Chen, and he'd worked in the industry for 20 years. "But she's 11 years old, and she's braver than I've been for 5 years." Someone had to tell the truth. The silence stretched. 500 people held their breath. 2 million people watched online, the live stream chat moving too fast to read. Chase Hendricks stood frozen, his carefully constructed image crumbling in real time, broadcast to the world. "This is ridiculous," Chase finally said, his voice shaking. "You're going to believe some kid over me? I have 2 Grammy Awards. I've sold 4 million albums." "Then prove her wrong," someone shouted from the audience. "Sing the note." The crowd was turning, the mood shifting from confusion to anger. Chase's face went from red to white. "I just did." "No, you didn't. You cracked. We all heard it." Chase looked at Zara, standing there in her discount store blouse, this child who'd somehow managed to expose him in front of the world, and something ugly twisted in his chest. Rage, fear, humiliation. "Fine," he said. "You think you're so smart. You sing it. Right now. No preparation, no warm-up, No second chances. Let's see if you can do what you claim I can't." Zara's hands trembled. This was the moment where she either proved herself or became exactly what Chase said she was, an attention-seeking kid who didn't know what she was talking about. The weight of it pressed down on her shoulders. From the choir section, Ms. Johnson's voice rang out. "You can do this, baby. Sing like you do at church." Zara closed her eyes. She took a breath, felt the air fill her lungs, felt her diaphragm expand, felt every lesson she'd learned in that small Baptist church settle into her bones. She opened her eyes and nodded to the band. They started again, the intro to Higher Ground for the second time that night. But everything was different now. The air felt charged, electric. Zara began to sing. Her voice started soft, almost tentative. The first verse was low, comfortable, well within her range. She focused on the words, on the story the song was telling, on finding her center in the chaos. Some people in the audience exchanged glances. She was good, sure, talented even, but nothing special yet, nothing that justified this confrontation. Then she reached the pre-chorus. Her voice opened up, gaining power without losing control. There was something raw and honest in her tone that hadn't been there in Chase's polished performance. She wasn't performing. She was testifying. She was bearing witness. The verse climbed higher. D5, E5, F5. Her voice followed effortlessly, each note pure and clear. No strain visible in her face, no tension in her shoulders. Chase shifted his weight, jaw tightening. The audience sat up straighter. The bridge approached. This was where he'd failed, where his voice had cracked and exposed everything. Zara didn't hesitate. She shifted registers smoothly, moving from chest voice to head voice without a break, without a seam. G5, A5, B5. The notes rang through the theater like bells. And then she reached for the C6. It came out clean. No crack, no strain, no digital shimmer, no trick. Just a pure, sustained whistle register note that rang through the Orpheum Theater like crystal chiming. She held it for 4 seconds, and the sound was crystalline, perfect, impossible, and utterly real. Someone in the front row gasped audibly. But Zara wasn't done. She took the note higher. D6, E6, F6. Into territory that Chase's backing track had never even attempted, that most professional singers couldn't access. Her face was calm, almost serene, as she explored the upper reaches of her range with the confidence of someone who'd lived there her whole life. Then she brought it back down. F6 to C6 to A5 to F5. Each transition seamless, each note a small miracle. She finished the bridge and moved into the final chorus, her voice now fully open, no longer hiding, no longer afraid, claiming her space in the world. When she sang the last word and let it fade into silence, nobody moved. Then the theater erupted. 500 people on their feet, screaming, applauding, some with tears streaming down their faces. The Jefferson Elementary Choir was jumping up and down. Ms. Johnson had both hands over her mouth, her eyes wet. The online stream exploded. Within 30 seconds, 50,000 people had shared the video. Within a minute, Zara Williams was trending worldwide. Zara stood in the spotlight, breathing hard, not quite believing what had just happened. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Chase Hendricks looked like he'd been struck by lightning. His face had gone gray. His eyes were unfocused. His career, his reputation, everything he'd built was crumbling in real time. Yolanda Carter, a legendary R&B singer sitting as a judge in the front row, stood up. She was crying, her face a mask of emotion. "That," Yolanda said, her voice thick, "is the best thing I've heard from an 11-year-old in my entire career. Baby, you didn't just hit that note. You owned it. You made it yours. The applause grew louder, waves of it crashing over the stage. Marcus Webb, another judge, a black music producer who'd worked with Alicia Keys and Kendrick Lamar, was shaking his head in disbelief. "I need to say something," he said, standing up. The audience quieted, sensing something important. "I've been in this industry for 30 years, Marcus said, his voice carrying weight. And what we just witnessed was an 11-year-old child singing a note that the man who made it famous can't actually hit." The audience went quiet again, the weight of his words settling over them like snow. Marcus turned to the crowd. "That album track, Higher Ground, I mixed it. I was there in the studio. And Zara's right. That's not Chase's voice on the high notes. That's Sophia Mitchell. She's a session singer in Atlanta. She was paid $2,000 and asked to sign an NDA. She never got proper credit. Her name is buried in the liner notes where nobody looks." Chase tried to speak, but no sound came out. His mouth moved, but nothing emerged. "I stayed quiet because that's what you do in this industry," Marcus continued, his voice heavy with regret. "You protect the star. You protect the money. You protect the illusion. But I'm done protecting lies, especially when an 11-year-old has more courage than I've had in 3 decades. The theater exploded again. Journalists typing furiously. Audience members shouting questions. Cameras abandoning all pretense of objectivity. Operators moving to capture every angle of the unfolding drama. Chase finally found his voice. "This is insane. You're going to destroy my career over a backing track? Everyone uses them. Beyoncé uses tracks. Taylor Swift uses tracks. But they don't claim they're singing live," Yolanda shot back. "They don't sell tickets to live performances and then lip sync. That's fraud, Chase. That's selling people something you can't deliver." I didn't," Chase sputtered, looking around for support, for someone to defend him. But his band members were looking away. His manager was on his phone, probably calling lawyers. His career was ending in real time, broadcast to millions. Chase turned to Zara one final time, and for a moment she saw something in his eyes that made her step back. Rage, yes, but also fear. Naked, desperate fear. "You're going to regret this," he said quietly, just loud enough for her microphone to catch. "You and your little school and your nobody teacher. I will make sure you never work in this industry. Do you understand me? Never." The threat hung in, the air caught by every camera, recorded for posterity. Ms. Johnson started to rise from her seat, protective instinct kicking in. But Zara spoke first. "I'm 11 years old," she said, her voice steady. "I don't work in the industry. I just sing because I love it. And you can't take that away from me." She paused, then added, "But maybe someone should take it away from you." The theater went silent again. Then someone started a slow clap, then another. Within seconds, 500 people were applauding, not for Chase Hendricks, but for a child who'd refused to lie, who'd chosen truth over safety. Chase looked around at the cameras, at the faces watching him, at the ruins of everything he'd built on stolen talent and protected lies. Then he walked off stage. The moment his foot hit the wings, the theater erupted again. People were on their phones. The live stream chat was moving too fast to read. Someone shouted, "Check Twitter. He's already trending." Not Zara Williams anymore. Chase Hendricks exposed? Chase Hendricks fraud? Chase Hendricks lies. Chase Hendricks over. Within 5 minutes, his Wikipedia page had been edited. Within 10, major music blogs were posting articles with headlines like "Famous Singer Exposed by 11-year-old" and "The Voice That Wasn't His." Within 15 minutes, 3 of his sponsors, Nike, Pepsi, and Samsung, had issued statements saying they were reviewing their relationship with him. Zara stood on that stage, surrounded by chaos she'd created simply by telling the truth, and felt something she'd never felt before. Not pride exactly, not triumph. Just the quiet certainty that she'd done the right thing, even though she had no idea what would come next. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. The chaos lasted 20 minutes before security cleared the theater. Zara sat backstage in a folding chair, Ms. Johnson's arm around her, shoulders watching adults argue in urgent whispers. Event organizers, Chase's management team, people in expensive suits talking into phones, voices tight with barely controlled panic. Nobody was talking to her. She was the center of everything, and somehow invisible at the same time. Her mother had called 3 times from the hospital, unable to leave her shift. "Baby, what happened? Are you okay? I'm seeing things online. Tell me you're safe." Zara didn't know how to answer. What had happened was that she'd destroyed a famous man's career in 3 minutes flat. Whether she was okay was unclear. And yes, she wanted her mother desperately, but County General was 40 minutes away, and Patricia Williams couldn't afford to lose this shift. The bills didn't stop because your daughter just changed the world. "I'm fine, Mama. Ms. Johnson is here." That had been an hour ago. Now it was nearly midnight. The other choir kids had gone home, collected by worried parents who'd seen the videos. The theater was empty except for crew breaking down equipment, the sound of metal cases closing echoing in the vast space. Zara was still sitting in that folding chair, waiting for someone to tell her what happened next. That's when Chase's lawyer arrived. He was a white man in his 50s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Zara's mother made in 6 months. He carried a leather briefcase and had a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The kind of smile that was really a weapon. "Miss Williams," he said, pulling up a chair across from her. "I'm Robert Kraft. I represent Mr. Hendricks." Ms. Johnson's arm tightened protectively around Zara's shoulders. "She's 11 years old. If you want to talk to her, her mother needs to be present." "Of course. I'm not here to interrogate anyone." His smile widened, somehow becoming less friendly. "I'm here to resolve this unfortunate misunderstanding before it gets worse for everyone involved." "There's no misunderstanding," Miss Johnson said, her voice ice. "Your client can't sing the notes he's famous for. That's fraud." Kraft's smile didn't waver. "The music industry is complex, Ms. Johnson. Artists use vocal support, backing tracks, studio enhancement. It's standard practice. What happened tonight was a young girl making serious accusations without understanding the professional context." "I understand that he lied," Zara said quietly. Kraft turned to her, his expression arranged into false sympathy. "No, sweetheart, you misunderstood. And unfortunately, that misunderstanding has caused Mr. Hendricks significant harm. His sponsors are threatening to pull out. His tour dates are in jeopardy. We're talking about millions of dollars in damages." The word damages hung in the air like a threat. "Are you threatening to sue an 11-year-old? Ms. Johnson's voice could have cut glass. "Not at all. We're hoping to avoid legal action entirely, which is why I'm here with a solution." He opened his briefcase, pulled out a document. "If Zara signs this, we can all move forward." Ms. Johnson took the paper. Her face grew darker with each line she read. "This says she made false accusations, that she apologizes, that she was seeking attention." "It's a mutual agreement," Kraft said smoothly. "In exchange, Mr. Hendricks will not pursue legal action against Zara, her family, or Jefferson Elementary. And as a gesture of goodwill, he'll personally fund a music scholarship for Zara. $50,000. Full ride to any program she wants." Zara's breath caught. $50,000. That was Berkeley. That was Juilliard. That was everything she'd dreamed of. Everything her mother had worked for. Everything that had seemed impossible until this moment. "And if she doesn't sign?" Ms. Johnson asked. Kraft's smile faded. "Then Mr. Hendricks will pursue defamation charges against Zara, against Jefferson Elementary, and against you, Ms. Johnson, for failing to supervise a minor in your care." He paused, letting that sink in. "The school district has been notified that Mr. Hendricks's promised donation, $500,000 for your music program, is now in jeopardy. The board is very concerned." Ms. Johnson's hand trembled on Zara's shoulder. "So let me be clear," Kraft continued, his voice taking on a harder edge. "Sign this. Accept the scholarship, everyone moves on. Or refuse, and watch your school lose funding while your family drowns in legal fees they can't afford. Defamation lawsuits are expensive, Miss Williams. Years in court, depositions, stress. And even if you win, which you won't, the legal costs alone will destroy you." He looked at Zara, his eyes cold. "What happens next is up to you." Zara stared at the document, at the words that would call her a liar, at the signature line that would erase everything she'd said, everything she'd done. She thought about her mother working double shifts, about her brothers who needed shoes, who shared a bedroom, who sometimes went to bed hungry when money got too tight, about the kids at Jefferson Elementary who'd lose their music program because of her. She thought about the truth. "No," she said. Kraft blinked. "Excuse me? I'm not signing that." Her voice was small but firm. "I didn't lie. He did. And I'm not going to say I lied, just because he's rich and I'm not." "Young lady, I don't think you understand the consequences." "I understand that you're trying to scare me," Zara said, standing up. Even at less than 5 feet tall, even with shaking hands, she looked him in the eye. "Sue me if you want, but I'm not signing that paper." Kraft's face hardened, the pretense of friendliness dropping away entirely. "Then we'll see you in court." He gathered his briefcase, stood. At the door, he turned back. "By tomorrow morning, there will be stories about you, about your family, private things, painful things, things you thought nobody knew. And when it gets bad, and it will, remember that you chose this." Then he was gone. Ms. Johnson pulled Zara close. "Baby, are you sure? That scholarship, $50,000. "I don't want his money," Zara whispered into Ms. Johnson's shoulder. But as they walked out into the cold Los Angeles night, past reporters who'd waited for hours, past cameras that caught her tear-stained face, Zara couldn't stop shaking. She'd just refused $50,000. She'd threatened her school's funding. She'd made an enemy of one of the most powerful men in music, and she had no idea if telling the truth had been worth what it was about to cost. Zara woke up to her phone buzzing like angry bees. 6 a.m, 3 hours of sleep. Her mother sat at their tiny kitchen table, laptop open, face pale as chalk. "Mama?" "Baby, don't go online today. Don't look at—" But Zara had already picked up her phone. The screen was full of notifications, thousands of them, the number climbing as she watched. She opened Twitter with trembling fingers. The first thing she saw was a photo of their apartment building, the peeling paint visible, the broken security gate, trash bins overflowing. The caption, "This is where Zara Williams lives. While she accuses Chase Hendricks of fraud, she's clearly desperate for a way out of poverty." Her hands went numb. The next post was her mother's work schedule, somehow obtained. Her mother barely makes $30,000 a year. Of course, the daughter is looking for a payday. Then photos from school yearbooks. Someone had circled the free lunch stamp on her cafeteria tray. Government assistance her whole life. This was never about truth. It's about money. The comments were brutal, vicious. Ungrateful kid. She should be thanking Chase for even acknowledging her. This is what happens when you give these people opportunities. They bite the hand that feeds them. These people. Her phone buzzed with texts from unknown numbers, threats, slurs, words she'd never heard directed at her before, words that made her feel small and dirty and wrong. Ms. Johnson called. "Don't come to school. The principal wants to meet with you and your mother. There are reporters outside. It's not safe." Reporters. Because of her. Because she told the truth. Zara felt like she was drowning. But then, at 7:15 a.m., something changed. A woman named Sophia Mitchell posted a video. She was in her 30s, black, sitting in a recording studio with gold records hanging on the wall behind her. "My name is Sophia Mitchell," she said, looking directly into the camera. "I'm a session singer, and I'm the voice Chase Hendricks has been selling as his own for 15 years. Zara's mother grabbed her hand, gripping it tight. "That little girl told the truth last night," Sophia continued. "I sang the whistle register notes on Higher Ground, and 4 other songs on Chase's albums. I was paid $2,000 per song and asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement that prevented me from ever claiming credit publicly." She held up a document. "This is my contract. This is proof. And I'm done staying silent while a child gets attacked for exposing what I was too afraid to expose myself." The video had been posted 8 minutes ago. Already 50,000 views. Within an hour, 2 million. Within 3 hours, 7 more session singers came forward, each with contracts, each with recordings, each confirming what Zara had said. By noon, the narrative had flipped. Chase Hendricks Exposed was trending, but now with proof, not speculation, with evidence, not just accusations. Zara sat on her worn couch, watching the internet tear apart the man who'd tried to destroy her. She wasn't alone anymore, but Chase Hendricks wasn't going down quietly. By that afternoon, his legal team had filed a $10 million defamation lawsuit, not just against Zara, against Sophia Mitchell, against Marcus Webb, the producer who'd spoken up at the gala, against Jefferson Elementary School for allowing a minor to make false public accusations. $10 million. Patricia Williams stared at the legal document that had been hand-delivered to their apartment at 3 p.m., her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the paper. "We don't have money for a lawyer," she whispered. "We don't have money for anything." The lawsuit was strategic, designed not to win, but to terrify. Chase's team knew that even if they lost, the legal fees alone would bankrupt everyone involved. It was a weapon, and they were wielding it with surgical precision. But the counterattack went deeper than lawsuits. By 4 p.m., gossip sites were running coordinated stories. Sources close to the Williams family claimed that Patricia had pushed her daughter to confront Chase, that the whole thing had been planned to extort money. One article included quotes from former neighbors saying the family was known for playing victim and looking for handouts. None of it was true. All of it was published. By 5 p.m., Jefferson Elementary was under siege. Not just reporters now, but angry Chase Hendricks fans, teenagers and adults standing outside the school with signs. Liars. Frauds. Leave Chase alone. The principal called an emergency meeting. Zara and her mother sat across from him in his office. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice heavy. "But the school board is considering suspending Zara pending investigation." "Investigation of what?" Patricia demanded. "She told the truth. You saw the video. Everyone saw it." "The board is concerned about the attention, the threats. We've had to increase security. Parents are calling, worried about their children's safety." He rubbed his face. "And Chase Hendricks's lawyers are threatening to sue the district for negligence. They're saying we failed to supervise Zara, that we allowed her to defame their client on school time." "She wasn't on school time," Ms. Johnson interjected from the corner where she'd been standing. "It was an evening event." "It was a school-sanctioned event," the principal said. "The choir was there representing Jefferson Elementary, which means legally we're liable for anything that happened." Zara felt her chest tighten, felt the walls closing in. "So I'm being suspended because I told the truth?" "You're being suspended because the school can't afford to fight a lawsuit from Chase Hendricks' legal team." The principal's voice was heavy with regret, but the words still landed like stones. "I'm sorry, Zara. I truly am. But the board meets tomorrow, and I don't think I can protect you." They left the school through a back entrance to avoid the cameras. At home, the apartment phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, threats, someone claiming to be from Child Protective Services, saying they'd received reports that Patricia was exploiting her child. It was fake. CPS didn't work like that, but it was effective. Every call was a small knife, each one cutting a little deeper. Zara's brothers were scared. They didn't understand why angry people were outside their building, why their sister was on TV, why everything felt like it was falling apart. That night, Patricia sat on the edge of Zara's bed, her eyes red from crying. "Baby, I need to ask you something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you could take it back, would you?" Zara thought about the question, about the $50,000 scholarship she'd refused, about the reporters outside their building, about her school suspending her, about the threats and the lies and the $10 million lawsuit that could destroy their lives, about her brother's fear and her mother's exhaustion and the weight of it all. "No," she said finally, "I wouldn't take it back." Patricia closed her eyes. A tear slid down her cheek. "Then we fight," she whispered. "I don't know how, but we fight." But fighting seemed impossible when the enemy had unlimited money and unlimited reach. At midnight, Zara lay awake in the bed she shared with her brothers, listening to them breathe in their sleep. She thought about Chase Hendricks in his mansion, somewhere in the Hollywood Hills, probably sleeping peacefully, protected by lawyers and money and the knowledge that the system was built to protect people like him. She thought about how easy it would be to give up, to sign the paper his lawyer had offered, to say she was sorry for telling the truth. And then she thought about Sophia Mitchell, who'd been silent for 15 years before finding the courage to speak, about Marcus Webb, who'd stayed quiet for 3 decades before standing up, about the 7 other session singers who come forward risking their own careers. They'd all been afraid, but they'd spoken anyway, because someone had to, even if that someone was just an 11-year-old girl who refused to lie. The knock came 7 in the morning. Patricia answered cautiously, expecting reporters. Instead, she found a woman in her 40s, professionally dressed, carrying a briefcase. "Mrs. Williams, my name is Diana Carter. I'm an entertainment attorney. I'd like to represent your daughter. Pro bono." Patricia blinked, not quite believing what she was hearing. "I'm sorry, what?" "No charge," Diana said. "Sophia Mitchell hired our firm to defend her. When we heard Chase sued an 11-year-old child, 3 partners at my firm volunteered to take Zara's case. May I come in?" Within an hour, their kitchen table was covered with documents. Diana worked quickly, her pen moving across legal pads with practiced efficiency. "Chase's lawsuit is garbage," she said bluntly. "Defamation requires false statements. Everything Zara said was demonstrably true. He won't win, but he knows that. This is intimidation, not litigation." "So what do we do?" Patricia asked. "We countersue. Fraud, false advertising, breach of contract with ticket holders who paid to see a live performance." Diana looked up, her eyes sharp. "We make it a class action. make it too expensive for him to continue. A second knock interrupted them. Ms. Johnson entered with Marcus Webb, the producer who'd exposed Chase on stage. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Chase's lawyers had gone after him too, trying to destroy his reputation, his credibility. "I wanted to check on her," Marcus said, sitting across from Zara. "I've been in this industry 30 years. I've watched powerful people crush careers, destroy lives. But I've also watched movements start. And sometimes they start with one person telling the truth." He pulled out his phone. "Look at this." Believe Zara was trending, exploding across social media. Alicia Keys had tweeted, "Protect that child. Listen to her truth." John Legend announced he was covering legal fees if needed. Kelly Clarkson, Fantasia, Jennifer Hudson, all speaking up, using their platforms to shield a child they'd never met. "You're not alone," Marcus said. The third knock came at 9 a.m. Rachel Goldstein from 60 Minutes, one of the most respected investigative journalists in the country. "I'd like to do a story," Rachel said. "A full investigation. Chase's career, his pattern of credit theft, the industry that protected him for 15 years. I want to tell the whole story, not just what happened on that stage." "Why?" Patricia asked, suspicious of everyone now. "Because I have a daughter your age," Rachel said quietly. "And if someone tried to silence her for telling the truth, I'd want someone to help." By noon, the apartment was full. Diana's paralegal had arrived with more documents. Two of Sophia's industry contacts offered statements. Ms. Johnson was coordinating with Jefferson elementary teachers who wanted to support Zara publicly. Consequences be damned. Then Sophia Mitchell herself arrived. She wasn't what Zara expected. In videos, Sophia looked polished, professional. In person, she looked tired, human, scared. She sat next to Zara and took her hand. "I was 23 when I signed that NDA," Sophia said. "I needed the money. I needed the work. And when they buried my name where nobody would see it, I told myself it was fine, just business, just how things worked." She paused, her grip tightening on Zara's hand. "I told myself that lie for 15 years, until I watched an 11-year-old refuse to lie at all." "I'm scared," Zara admitted. "Me too," Sophia said. "But we're scared together now. That's different." By evening, the narrative was shifting, not just on social media, but in major outlets. The New York Times. Session singer speaks out. The hidden voices behind pop music. Rolling Stone was preparing an exposé on Chase's entire catalog. Billboard was investigating how many other artists had similar arrangements. The story had grown beyond Zara. It was about session musicians whose work was stolen, about talent used and discarded, about names erased so others could shine, about an industry built on exploitation and protected by silence. Jefferson Elementary's principal called that evening. The school board voted. Zara isn't being suspended. Instead, we're declining Chase's donation and issuing a public statement supporting Zara's right to speak truth. His voice was firm, proud. "We don't want money from someone who attacks children." That night, a GoFundMe appeared. Not from Zara's family, from parents at Jefferson Elementary, from community members, from strangers who'd seen the videos and wanted to help. The goal was $50,000 to replace Chase's donation. It raised $300,000 in 6 hours. Zara sat on her couch, watching donations scroll past, reading messages from people she'd never met. Teachers, musicians, parents, kids her age who said she'd inspired them to speak up about things they'd been too afraid to mention. Patricia read, from her phone, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm a session musician in Nashville. I've had my work stolen for 20 years. Watching Zara gave me courage to demand proper credit. Thank you, brave girl." Marcus had been right. This was bigger than one lawsuit, one career, one scared child. This was a movement, and Zara Williams, 11 years old, 4'7", sharing a bedroom in Compton, was at its center. Not because she'd wanted attention or money or fame, but because she'd done the simplest, hardest thing in the world. She'd refused to lie. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in this story, and share your thoughts in the comments. The courtroom was smaller than Zara had imagined. Los Angeles Superior Court, Department 23. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights that hummed. 30 people filled the gallery, reporters mostly, and supporters who'd lined up at dawn for seats. Chase Hendricks sat at the plaintiff's table with 5 lawyers in expensive suits. He wore a navy blazer and an expression of wounded dignity, playing the victim even now. Zara sat at the defense table between her mother and Diana Carter. Her legs dangled from the chair, not quite reaching the floor. She wore the same white blouse from the gala, the nicest thing she owned. This wasn't the full trial. This was a preliminary hearing on Chase's motion for an injunction to legally force Zara, Sophia, and Marcus to stop making what he called defamatory statements. Judge Patricia Moreno entered, Latina woman, 60s, 20 years on the bench. She looked at Chase's team, then at Zara, and something flickered across her face. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. "Mr. Kraft," she said to Chase's attorney, "you're seeking an injunction against an 11-year-old child. Your Honor, the defendant's age doesn't negate the harm caused by her false statements." "Were they false?" Judge Moreno interrupted. "They were made with malicious intent to destroy my client's reputation and career." "That's not what I asked. Were the statements false? Yes or no?" Kraft shifted uncomfortably. "The statements were made without understanding the professional context of modern music production." "Counselor, I'm going to ask you one more time. Did this child lie? Yes or no?" Silence stretched across the courtroom. "We believe the characterization of industry standard practices as fraud was misleading and—" "So no," Judge Moreno said, making a note. "Ms. Carter, do you have evidence supporting Miss Williams' claims?" "Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Sophia Mitchell." Sophia took the stand, was sworn in. Diana walked her through the testimony methodically. The contracts, the NDAs, the recordings proving her voice was on Chase's albums, the emails explicitly instructing her never to claim credit, to stay invisible, to let Chase take everything. "Miss Mitchell," Diana asked, "when you heard Zara Williams say Chase Hendricks couldn't sing those notes, what did you think?" "I thought, finally, someone said it out loud." "And was she correct?" "Yes, completely." Diana sat. Kraft stood for cross-examination, but Judge Moreno held up her hand. "I've heard enough." She looked directly at Chase. "Mr. Hendricks, I'm going to ask you something. You're under oath, even not on the stand. Can you, right now in this courtroom, sing the note in question?" Chase's face went pale. "Your Honor, I don't see how that's relevant." "It's extremely relevant. You're asking this court to silence people who say you can't hit a note. Prove them wrong. Sing it." The courtroom held its breath. Chase looked at his lawyers, at the judge, at Zara sitting there watching him with those clear, unafraid eyes. My voice isn't warmed up. I can't just perform on demand." "You performed on demand for 15 years, Judge Moreno said. "You sold tickets to live performances. Surely you can demonstrate it once." Chase's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. "That's what I thought." Judge Moreno picked up her gavel. "The motion for injunction is denied. Furthermore, I'm sanctioning the plaintiff $25,000 for bringing a frivolous suit intended to silence truthful speech." "Mr. Hendricks, you don't get to drag an 11-year-old into court because she embarrassed you." She looked at Zara. "Miss Williams, You're free to continue telling your story. That's called the First Amendment. It protects truth, even when truth is inconvenient. The gavel came down. The gallery erupted. Reporters rushed for exits. Camera flashes went off. Chase Hendricks sat frozen, his lawyers already packing briefcases, abandoning a sinking ship. Zara felt her mother's arms around her, felt Ms. Johnson's hand on her shoulder, heard Sophia crying with relief. Outside the courtroom, Rachel Goldstein waited with her 60 Minutes crew. "Zara, how do you feel?" "I feel like I can breathe again." That night, the 60 Minutes episode aired. 18 million people watched Rachel's investigation. They saw contracts with session singers. They saw frequency analysis proving the voice wasn't Chase's. They saw musicians who'd been silenced by NDAs, their talent stolen, their names erased. They saw Chase, defensive and angry, claiming victim status even as the evidence mounted. They saw him refuse to sing the note when Rachel asked, saw him deflect and avoid and lie. And they saw Zara, 11 years old in her small apartment, explaining what perfect pitch was, how she'd known, why she'd spoken. "I wasn't trying to hurt him," she said to the camera. "I was just telling the truth. I didn't know the truth could be so dangerous." By the time credits rolled, Chase's remaining sponsors had withdrawn. His label dropped him. His Vegas residency was canceled. The Grammy committee announced they were reviewing his awards with the intent to revoke them. His career, built on stolen voices and protected lies, was over, ended by a child who'd simply refused to stay quiet. 3 months later, Chase Hendricks filed for bankruptcy. The class action lawsuit settled. 15,000 ticket holders received refunds totaling $23 million. His mansion went up for sale. His car collection, recording studio, music rights, all liquidated to pay debts. Both Grammy Awards were officially revoked. First time in Grammy history. Chase attempted a comeback tour 6 months later. Unplugged and unfiltered, promising everything live, complete transparency. 8 dates in small venues. He sold 11% of tickets. The reviews were brutal. Hendrix's voice, exposed without studio magic, reveals an unremarkable tenor with limited range. The Emperor has no clothes. After the 3rd show, he canceled the rest. Last anyone heard, he was teaching music business at an online for-profit college, making promotional videos nobody watched. But this story isn't about Chase's fall. It's about what rose. Zara Williams received 5 major label offers. Patricia declined them all. She's 11 years old. She needs to be a child first. Instead, Zara signed with an independent label owned by black musicians. The contract was unusual. No albums required until 16. Creative control guaranteed. Ownership of her masters. And 15% of her earnings went to a fund she created, Unbreakable Voices. The fund provided scholarships for young singers from underprivileged backgrounds, free vocal training, music theory, and legal education about contracts and rights. 50 scholarships the first year, 200 by year 3. Zara recorded 1 single, My Own Voice. She wrote it with Sophia Mitchell about finding courage, speaking truth, saying no when everyone expects silence. It went gold in 6 weeks. The video featured Zara singing in her church, her school, her apartment, places where her real voice was born. Vamos. The end. 50 scholarship recipients joined her. Every race, every background, all credited, all seen, all claiming their space. The industry changed. California passed Assembly Bill 2847, Zara's Law. Required disclosure when live performances used pre-recorded vocals. Tickets had to state it clearly. Violation was consumer fraud, punishable by fines and refunds. 12 states adopted similar laws within 18 months. The Recording Academy overhauled credit requirements. All Grammy submissions needed detailed documentation of every vocalist. Additional vocals was no longer acceptable. You had to name them. You had to see them. Spotify and Apple Music added credits tabs to every song. Session musicians, invisible for decades, suddenly had names attached to their work. People could find them, follow them, support them directly. A session musicians union formed. 2,000 members in the first year. They negotiated minimum standards, proper credit, royalty participation, legal protection. 47 artists voluntarily updated liner notes acknowledging previously uncredited session singers. Transparency became the new currency. Sophia Mitchell's career exploded. 15 years in the shadows, now magazine covers and television interviews. She released her own album. She won a Grammy, for real this time, under her own name. In her acceptance speech, she thanked Zara. "I was too afraid to speak for 15 years. This 11-year-old showed me what courage looks like. This award belongs to both of us." Marcus Webb started a production company dedicated to properly crediting new talent. "I'm done protecting frauds. I'm protecting the truth now." Jefferson Elementary's music program became the best funded in the district. $800,000 from the GoFundMe. 2 new teachers, instruments for everyone, scholarships named after Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson received offers from prestigious schools. She turned them all down. "My kids are here. I'm staying." 1 year after the gala, Zara performed at the Grammy Awards. 12 now. Still in regular school, still sharing a bedroom, still singing in church every Sunday. She stood on that stage in a simple dress. No elaborate production, no backup dancers, no special effects. Just her voice and piano, played by Sophia. She sang My Own Voice. When she hit the final note, a sustained C6 that rang clear through the Staples Center, 18,000 people rose to their feet. Not because it was impossible, because it was honest. Remember that moment when Chase Hendricks pointed at a small black girl in a cheap uniform and dragged her onto a stage, expecting her to crumble? When he whispered, "Don't embarrass yourself," into a live microphone, thinking nobody would care? He thought he was teaching her about knowing her place. He didn't know she was about to teach the world about truth. 18 months later, Zara Williams is 13. Still in that apartment in Compton. Still shares a bedroom with her brothers. Still takes the bus to school. But everything changed. Session singers who'd been invisible for decades now have their names in lights. Young artists have legal protection. Audiences demand transparency. And across the country, kids are singing unafraid because they watched an 11-year-old refuse to shrink. Zara didn't just hit a note Chase Hendricks couldn't reach. She hit a note the entire industry couldn't ignore. The note that says, "Your truth matters more than their comfort." The note that says, "Being small doesn't mean being silent." Chase thought he could destroy her with threats and lawsuits and money. He learned what every bully learns eventually. You can't silence someone who's decided their voice matters. Today, Chase teaches online classes nobody remembers. Awards revoked, mansions sold, legacy reduced to a cautionary tale. And Zara? Still just a kid who loves to sing, who does homework and argues with her brothers, who sometimes forgets she changed an industry. That's real courage. It doesn't need an announcement or a spotlight or millions of dollars. Sometimes it sounds like a 12-year-old saying no when everyone expects her to fold. So here's the question. If you were there, would you have stood up for Zara when the lawyers came? When the threats started? When everyone said stay quiet? Or would you have stayed seated, relieved it wasn't you? We all think we'd be heroes, but courage is harder than we imagine. And if you've ever been told to stay small, to know your place, to accept the lie, share your story. Zara's voice was just the beginning. Yours matters too. If this story reminded you why truth matters, if it made you think about your own voice and the moments when you chose silence or courage, I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me what hit you hardest. Was it Zara standing up to that lawyer? Was it Sophia finally speaking after 15 years? Was it the moment in court when the judge asked Chase to sing? And if this story moved you, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to True Justice, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been told to stay small. Someone who's choosing between truth and safety. Someone who needs to know their voice matters. I'm reading every comment, every story you share, because Zara's voice was just the beginning. The world needs more truth tellers, more people who refuse to shrink, more people like you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And thank you for believing that one voice, even a small one, can change everything. I'll see you in the next one.